Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Mind your business. Only on Money FM 89.3.
Thanks for joining us on The Breakfast Show. I'm Audrey Seek with Ahmad Akhtar on Mind Your Business today. And Ahmad, have you ever sent an email that you shouldn't have? You know that sinking feeling when you realize you can't take it back?
To be honest, at the top of my head, I can't think of any right now. But there has been a few bad blunders in the corporate world, hasn't there?
Yes. So I think a lot of us have been there, you know, that uh-oh moment. But now imagine that instead of an email, it's an $81 trillion banking mistake.
Yeah, that's right. That's what happened to Citibank last year when the bank mistakenly credited a customer's account with $81 trillion when it was meant to send just $280. Yeah, you heard that correctly. But that is not, unfortunately, an isolated incident. Again, last year, Macy's uncovered a staggering $150 million in hidden expenses. And that was a mistake that snowballed over 3 years because of a bookkeeping oversight.
And these are just the headline-grabbing cases, right? Believe it or not, nearly 60% of accountants say they make financial errors every single week. So the real question is, how do companies stop these mistakes before they happen? What's the solution? Is it more approvals, more double checking, more overtime? Maybe there's a better way. So enter workflow automation, and that's where Summit Global comes in.
That's right. So to tell us why automation is not just a convenience, but also a necessity, we're pleased to welcome on the show Joanne Chung, CEO of Summit Global. Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. As we've seen, high-profile financial mishaps happen due to approval process failures. Citibank's recent $81 trillion trade blunder also follows another incident in 2020 when the same bank mistakenly paid beauty company Revlon lenders $900 million instead of the intended $7.8 million interest payment. So they seem pretty common across large organizations. The first question is, why is that so, and why do they still happen despite existing safeguards?
So I have to admit, these issues are a lot more common than most people realize. You know, what we're seeing is actually a lot of businesses, in fact, 63% of businesses say they're still doing things manually when it comes to processing financial transactions in their business. And so when you're doing things like manually keying transactions from one platform to another or between spreadsheets, you open yourself up to vulnerabilities. Now, the common safeguards that a lot of businesses use are things like the 4-eye checks, or in Citibank's case, I think the $900 million, they talked about a 6-eye check. That is usually the most common safeguard. But what we do know is that when you're doing repetitive manual tasks over and over again, that's when fatigue kind of sets in, distraction sets in, and you tend to let things kind of slide because you don't notice it as much. And so that's really the risk. So despite the safeguards, I think there still is real vulnerabilities in manual processing.
Yeah, so many companies are now starting to see workflow automation as kind of a must-have rather than a nice-to-have. So what's driving the shift, and why do you think automation is becoming a non-negotiable for businesses today?
Look, I think with advancements in technology, such as AI coming into the forefront to be able to catch things and pick things up very, very quickly in real time, there really isn't an excuse now for businesses not to be embracing some of this new technology because it is becoming a lot more affordable for businesses as well. You know, you do not want to be that leader who on your watch you suddenly see an error of a large magnitude of money leaving the business. And you've got that sinking feeling, as you all mentioned, and you go, actually, it could have been simple. I could have adopted some tool that really helped pick that up. So you don't want it happening on your watch. So I think, you know, this is why I strongly believe it'll become a non-negotiable. You'll be looking at it going, I can't afford not to do this anymore.
Yeah, so enter Summit Global then. What do you guys exactly help out with? What sort of gap in the market are you looking to fill? And how does your AI-powered platform help the operational needs of a company?
Yeah, so we actually help on two fronts. The first is in digitizing your workflow.
Yeah.
So this is all about removing all that manual entry and starting to leverage technology like AI to do things like automatically capture the data, giving you more time to do the reviews and the checks. We also automate things like your approval workflows. So that means making sure it gets to the right people at the right time to approve it. And we also automate the ability for that data to pass through to the platforms and systems that matter in your business. So your accounting platform, platforms. The other element that we really help with is that anomaly detection. And so this is where technology and AI technology in particular comes to the forefront. So we've got two key solutions that actually help our clients. One is around anomaly detection against company policies. So this is where your company might have an expense policy on what you can or can't claim. Lots and lots of rules. We all have been there as employees. And, usually it would take you time to locate the document, read the document, interpret the document, and then decide what you can and can't pay. Our system does this for you in real time. So it's at your fingertips, not only for you as a submitter, but also for the people in the approval chain.
So your AI actually parses through the policy document and then tells the company whether or not this falls within.
Yeah. And even more brilliantly, you don't have to set up 1,000 settings on our platform to achieve this. It's literally as easy as uploading your company's PDF document, which is your expense policy, and it reads it and interprets it real time on the go. So that's one of the major things. The other thing that is really helping businesses, because it's hard to do when you're processing hundreds or sometimes thousands of expenses every month, duplicate detection is a big one. Duplicate detection could be due to errors, could also be due to fraud. So it's designed to identify it immediately and let you know with warnings that say, hey, this looks like a duplicate, gives you the right information so you can make a sensible decision on, hold on, should I process this transaction or should I pause it?
Okay, so Summit Global has evolved beyond just a finance tool and into a complete kind of workflow solution. And automation is great when it works smoothly, right? But one of the biggest challenges is getting teams to actually embrace it and to use it. So how does Summit Global kind of integrate with existing workflows without kind of overwhelming users or making things more complicated?
Yeah, the big piece for us here is not to change or re-engineer your workflow process, because I think that's hard for businesses. The minute you say, hey, coming in and doing a complete overhaul and now it's all going to be new, everyone kind of groans and goes, oh, what do I have to learn? What do I have to know? So our job is really to go in and complement the existing workflows that businesses have today. So what you actually have as a business process, we're focused on driving real efficiencies and better effectiveness on how those workflows work. So removing the manual keying helps speed up the efficiencies around checking, getting the information to the right place, saving you time and having to hunt down information.
Yeah, we talked earlier about how many businesses hesitate to switch from manual finance processes to AI-driven solutions. A lot of them have resistance. Old habits die hard, as they say. How do you get clients to sort of jump on the bandwagon? Because you say 63% are still standing their ground. So you're only targeting a minority of 37%. How do you get them to come on board? And secondly, which industries do you see using your services?
Yeah, look, I'll start with the first question on how do you get them to come on board. I think a lot of businesses are actually open to the idea of exploring what automation can do for their business. So that's a big thing. I think a lot of people are open to learning about the new technology, learning about what changes can come in. The actual adoption piece, I think the biggest piece for me has been, we started out as a workflow automation tool. We've evolved into really strengthening the things that we can do to help protect businesses against payment anomalies or expense anomalies. Now, that is the thing that really captures a business to want to move because we all have been there. Like I said, you don't want it to happen on your watch. And so that is a really big driver for why a lot of businesses then decide to adopt. The kind of industries that are interested in this solution is actually quite broad, but we're seeing some commonalities. So it's the ones that are processing a lot of expenses every month. Why? Because that's hard to manage when you're doing it manually in particular. And so they're the businesses that are most interested in change and having all these benefits come on board as well. So industries such as the logistics area, where there's a lot of claims, a lot of expenses. We're also seeing it in areas like professional services where there's a lot of client-based expenses and project-based expenses that they need to have a good handle on, as well as areas like retail, events companies, etc. So it is quite broad.
Okay, and have you seen or are you able to share any real-world kind of success stories where companies have prevented maybe major financial errors using Summit Global? What kind of impact has it had on efficiency and risk reduction?
Yeah, so look, without breaching any client privacy, what I will say to you is, we're monitoring this all the time. So we had a client of ours just in the last month processing their expenses. And we've talked about it only takes one to go through, and it can be a pretty sizable one. So for that client last month alone, the value that we were able to detect using our platforms was worth over 10% of their total expenses for the month. So yes, it can be sizable. And, we're obviously every month this platform on an ongoing basis protects clients, but that's just to highlight the nature of what you can be looking to save. So just think about if you're a large company, it could be your biggest expense that you're processing that month that you've missed for whatever reason. That's what these platforms are designed to help you with.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about expense management. That's what this conversation is about. There's one that we haven't touched on, and it's a different kind of an expense, and it's the cost that clients have to pay to get you guys on board to help them out. So how do you price your services to your customers?
Look, we've been really thoughtful about how we make this valuable for clients and make it make sense. A lot of platforms out in the market will actually charge based on users and the number of users you want. But what we realised speaking to businesses is that in order to get the maximum benefit out of these platforms, you want all your employees to be on it, right? Raising expenses, processing expenses, etc. That's when you get the most value. But it never made sense to price based on users, because we all know there's that one user in the company or those handful of users that only log on once a month. So why am I paying the full amount? We've actually chosen to go a slightly different route. We charge based on transactions. So the cost does vary. It depends on the number of transactions you're processing as a business, but it gives a lot of benefit and allows the company to see tangible value, which is great. If I'm processing 1,000 transactions, it makes sense that I get charged this amount, not based on how many employees I sign up.
All right. So, Joanne, looking ahead, how do you see automation and AI-powered tools in general, like Summit Global, kind of reshaping the business landscape in Singapore and even beyond?
I think this is the part that really excites me, Audrey, because when you look at where I see the finance world going and how it can help businesses, today a lot of finance people are just bogged down in the monotony of deadlines and processing, whether it be expenses, revenue, etc. Just those manual repetitive tasks. So they're not really adding a huge amount of value into the businesses that they work for. What we would all love from our finance teams in our companies is come partner with us. Come help us do the scenario planning that says, if I make this decision, what could it do for my business? But the reality is they often don't have time to actually help their business partners achieve that. So for me, what do I see a world of? I see a world where these tools free up their time and give them the time back as well as the insights back to actually go back and partner with these businesses and help them become more successful.
Yeah, speaking of insights, I know you don't typically provide solutions for startups, but we have a lot of startup founders that listen to us here on Money FM. If you were advising a startup today on financial efficiency, what's the first thing you'd tell them to automate?
The first thing I'd tell them to automate in their finance is don't get bogged down in processes. Like for a startup to actually succeed, you need to be focused on your business, growing your business, the revenue. You do not want to be drowning in paperwork. We know a lot of startups, actually, founders, they're up till late at night processing all the paperwork. So I'd say to them, while your expenses are small, some of these platforms can be quite affordable. Seriously consider it because your time is valuable and it defines the success of your business. So free up as much of your time to spend it on the things that are going to drive success.
All right. Well, it's clear that automation isn't just about saving time. It's also about saving businesses from costly mistakes. And Summit Global is definitely helping companies get it right the first time. Thank you so much, Joanne, for joining us today. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Joanne Chung is the CEO of Summit Global, and you're listening to Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.